All right. So over here we are with the new topic from chapter number 9. Your chapter is heating and cooling, and the topic that we have started in today's class is change in volume, that is your expansion and contraction, and it is there on page number 194 in your books. Right. When we talk about heating and the temperature of it, okay, the heat and temperature, there are different effects of heat gain and heat loss. That whenever an object gains heat, what happens to it, and when it loses heat, what happens to it. It has different effects of it, right? In previous class, we have done with the first effect, that was your change in state, and now we are doing that change in volume. Okay? When we talk about change in volume, volume means its conditions, right? Its conditions, its size, basically means its size. When we talk about that, the effects of heat gain and heat loss to any object depends upon the size of it. So first of all, we also need to understand that what is thermal expansion and contractions. Okay? Expansion and contraction, first of all, these are the English terms. I have explained you the meanings as well in the previous class also, and over here also it is written that if a material as its temperature, if a material expands as its temperature rises, this would mean the same mass of material would occupy a larger volume and its density will decrease. For example, as different materials expand by different amounts, we can design different types of thermometers for different applications. Most analog thermometers are used, analog thermometers are made using mercury, which is the only metal in a liquid state at a room temperature, right? So over here, basically, what are they telling you? With the help of an example from the mercury, which is there in a thermometer, they are trying to explain the effect of extension on contraction. They are saying that whenever any of the object, whether it is your solid, your liquid, or your gas, okay, whenever any of the substance becomes uh, expands, then what happened to it? It becomes larger in size, okay? And contract means that it becomes smaller in size. सिर्फ इतनी सी बात है expansion और contraction में, and expansion and contraction happens in all types of substance, whether it is your solid, whether it's liquid, or it is a gas. ठीक है? It is applicable in all these three substances. When we talk about expansion and contraction in solids, so first of all, we need to understand with these four main points that when substances expands or contracts, the particles stay the same size. ठीक है ना? The particles that were joined together in order to form that liquid, solid, or gases, that remains at the particular size only. Then now the question arises, then what changes then? ठीक है, अगर उसके particles उतने ही size के रहते हैं, then what is the thing that changes it from there? So only the spaces between the particle changes. All right, the particle of these substances never changes, but only the spaces which are there between those particles, they change. Now the particles in the solid vibrate more when it is heated, thus take up more room expansion, similar to liquid and gases when heated. Now over here, what are they telling us? They are telling us the particles that are there in the solid, they vibrate whenever it expands. ठीक है, जब उसको expand होना होता है, जब उसको large होना होता है, तो उसके particles क्या होते हैं, वो आपस में ज्यादा तेज vibrate होते हैं, and so it becomes larger as compared to liquid and gas. These were the effects of expansion and contraction in solid. Now over here also they are telling us the same thing, that when things heat up, what happens when any of the thing heats up? And again they are giving us the example of solid only. The atom speeds up, the atoms move further apart from each other. Now what are the atoms? Atoms are those tiny particles which are combined together to form a solid. The object expands, gets bigger, diffusion happens faster. All right, same thing they are also explaining, but words are changed. Okay? And they also explain the same thing regarding your solid only. Now over here they are given the example, like this is the bimetal strip. Bimetal means जहाँ पे हमारे दो तरह के metals use हो रहे होते हैं, ठीक है? On the upper part of the strip, iron is used, and in the lower part brass is used. First of all, they are showing us the cold side of it. It means जब जहाँ पे हमारी कोई भी energy use नहीं हो रही है, ठीक है? It's I mean, like heat is also not gaining or losing. ठीक है. And in the second part of it, your metal strip. Now what happens whenever you will put a fire under it, then base expands the most. Why do you think that base expands the most? Because you have lit the fire underneath it. If you will put the fire on top of it, then the iron part will become expense. ठीक है, the iron part will expand. आप जिस तरफ भी इसको आग रखोगे, आप जिस तरफ भी इसको हीट दोगे, उस तरफ से ही एक्सपेंड होना शुरू हो जाएगा. दिस हैपेंस इन सॉलिड. ठीक है, सिंस बोथ आयरन एंड ब्रास वर सॉलिड, सो दिस इज द चेंज दैट अकर्स. सही है. Of course the iron will also expand, but later on. First of all, the base expands, or any part of that um, expands wherever you have lit the fire. So that was all about your solids. Now let's move on to the liquid part of it. ठीक है ना? Because change in volume, expansion and contraction occurs in all three states, in all the three forms of these states. Now let's move on to the liquid. That is, when a liquid is heated, the molecules of the liquid have more energy and move more vigorously. ठीक है? The movement of the molecules gradually overcomes the forces of attraction between molecules, allowing them to have greater freedom to move over greater volumes. Thus, the liquid expands. Now, what happens in the liquid? Since liquid is made out of different molecules, so as soon as the liquid is heated, the molecules have more space to move. ठीक है? Vigorously means openly and widely. The movement of the molecules gradually overcomes and forces of attraction between molecules allow them to have greater freedom. Now over here इसके अंदर ये हमें बात क्या बताना चाह रहे हैं, that if you will compare solid and liquid together, so liquid will expand and liquid will take more space than solid. All right, whenever liquid expand, it takes more space than solid if solid expands. Now अगर मैं आपको एक एग्जांपल दूं कि आप आयरन को हीट अप करें और फिर आयरन एक्सपेंड कर जाए, तो वो ज्यादा जगह लेगा, या अगर मैं आपसे कहूँ कि आप एक आइस क्यूब को लिक्विड करें, ठीक है, आप एक आइस क्यूब को हीट अप करें और फिर जब वो स्पेस लेगा, तो कौन सी चीज इसमें से, whether do you think that ice cube is taking the more space or iron after expanding takes the more space? Of course, ice cube will take a more space when it will change into liquid. All right. Now this, why do you think that this happens? Because these molecules of this liquid moves more faster, ठीक है, and hence it takes more space. Now over here, again, they are showing us about the expansion and contractions of liquid, that when the liquid is heated, the molecules have more energy and move more vigorously. The movement of the molecules overcome the forces. ठीक है, यहाँ पर भी हम यही चीज बता रहे हैं, but over here I would like you all to focus on the diagrams which is shown over here. That when it was cooled, that when liquid was cooled, of course, whenever you think that liquid is cold, it's basically a solid, not a liquid. ठीक है. As soon as you will heat it up, what happened? It becomes hot and then it changes its shapes into liquid. और आप यहाँ पे देख रहे हैं इसके जो molecules हैं वो expand होना शुरू हो गए हैं, and hence it is taken more place when a solid changes into liquid, right? Now let's move on to the gas part of it. Yeah. So over here they are showing us the expansion and contractions of gases. Expansion of gases: when the gas is heated, the molecules gain more energy and more faster and further apart. This causes the volume to increase. Contraction of gases: at a lower temperature, the molecules have move slower and have less energy. They are closer together, causing the volume to decrease. यहाँ पर भी हमें बिल्कुल वही चीज बताई जा रही है कि गैसेस के अंदर भी contraction और expansion होता है. Whenever the gas expands, then what happens? It moves faster, it disappears faster, the process of evaporation moves more fastly, ठीक है? And whenever it is heated, what happened? The process of evaporation gets slower. What is evaporation? The process of changing liquid into gas, ठीक है? And when it mixes into the air onto the environment, that becomes the process of evaporation, ठीक है? So यहाँ पे हमें ये चीज बताई गई है. Now the last step of all these things are, we must just generally look into the thermal expansion, the expansion or contraction of objects due to heat or in out. Generally, heat in expansion and heat out contraction. This is going to be your key point and your summarized point for the entire topic that we have done so far. That whenever the heat is out, it is contraction, and whenever the heat is in, it is expansion. ठीक है? Like it means gain. आउट मीन्स लॉस। ठीक है, जब भी हीट गेन होती है एक्सपेंशन हो जाता है, जब भी हीट लॉस होती है हमारा कॉन्ट्रैक्शन हो जाता है।